You have worn a face for so long that you mistake it for skin, a quiet construction built from fears you never chose, expectations you never questioned, and memories that cling to you like wet cloth. Musashi knew this feeling before he had a name worthy of fear. He began as a wild, impulsive youth, a boy whose identity was nothing more than instinct and defiance, a creature reacting rather than choosing. In that chaos, he carried a face shaped not by intention but by the world around him, a ghost armor crafted from impulse and insecurity. You have a similar armor. You inherited fragments from family, school, failure, the labels whispered behind your back. You carried them because you thought they were protection. But ghost armor only looks solid until life strikes it. And then it shatters, leaving you exposed and wondering how you ever believed it would save you. In the modern world, this collapse happens quietly, not in duels or battles, but in a slow erosion of self through distraction, comfort, and digital noise. Algorithms mold your preferences, society molds your reactions, and the life you think is yours becomes a drift you barely notice. This is where the unease begins, a subtle tension behind your ribs, the sense that the man you appear to be is not the man you are meant to become. Musashi understood this long before he became legend. If you do not break the identity given to you, it becomes the cage you die in, and that cage is silent, familiar, and airtight. So here you stand, wearing a face that feels increasingly foreign. The world sees it, you feel it, and somewhere in your chest, a question rises like smoke. What if this identity isn't yours? What if it's just the mask you were told to wear? The ghost armor you never forged yourself. If you do nothing, you stay trapped inside it. But if you dare to break it, the true path begins, the one that leads you inward, away from imitation, and toward the man waiting behind the ruins. There comes a moment in every man's life when the mirror stops being a surface and becomes an adversary. Musashi met his in the aftermath of the Battle of Sekigahara, bloodied, defeated, stripped of the illusions that once held him together. That loss wasn't just a military failure, it was an identity collapse. In humiliation, he saw the reflection of a man who had been living on impulse, not discipline, and for the first time, the mask cracked enough for truth to shine through. You've felt echoes of this moment. Sometimes it arrives in the silence after a breakup, when your phone stays dark and you realize how much of your worth depended on someone else's attention. Sometimes it comes after failure, academic, financial, personal, when every excuse you once hid behind evaporates. Or perhaps it appears during stagnation, when you wake up one morning and feel a heaviness that whispers, you have been moving, but you have not been living. The mirror is merciless, because it reflects not the man you pretend to be, but the man you fear you are. In that confrontation, you sense the old identity beginning to die, not dramatically, not loudly, but with a slow, suffocating honesty. This is the battlefield where truth cuts deeper than any sword. The recognition that your habits, your reactions, your so-called personality have been shaped more by avoidance than intention. Musashi tasted that bitterness and understood its meaning. Pain is the catalyst for transformation. You cannot become someone new until you admit you are no longer proud of the man you see. That confession, silent but absolute, is the breaking point. A man's old identity dies the moment he stops lying to himself. This is where you stand now, at the edge of your former self, staring into a reflection that no longer fits. You can look away, drown it in distraction, and return to the familiar decay. Or you can hold your gaze and let the discomfort burn through every layer of falsehood attached to your name. In that fire, a strange clarity emerges. The man in the mirror is not finished. He is merely unchosen. And this is your chance to choose him or leave him behind. There is a reason Musashi vanished into mountains and caves, walking away from the noise of clans and the comfort of society. He understood that solitude is not an escape. It is a furnace. When a man chooses isolation, he enters the crucible where the weak self burns. No applause, no validation, no soft distractions to cushion the truth. Just a raw encounter with the patterns he has been avoiding his entire life. In the modern world, solitude is nearly impossible. Men drown themselves in stimulation. Screens glow like artificial suns. Noise fills every moment. Quiet becomes terrifying because quiet exposes the truth you've been running from. The world teaches you to fear stillness because stillness reveals the cracks in your identity, the contradictions in your behavior, the addictions you've hidden beneath routine. Musashi embraced that confrontation. Alone in the wilderness, he stripped away every imitation he once carried. There were no rivals to impress, No teachers to obey, no spectators to witness his struggle. Only the echo of his own breath, and the awareness of who he truly was beneath the persona. This stripping is brutal. Solitude removes the world that once fed your old identity, and without those external voices, the weak self begins to starve. You feel this when you sit alone in a room without reaching for your phone, when you walk without music, when the silence grows thick enough for your thoughts to surface. In that quiet, the excuses that once protected you lose their power. Your patterns reveal themselves. The temptations you call habits reveal their chains. You see the parts of yourself that must die, the impulsive parts, the fearful parts, the self-sabotaging parts. Breaking identity is not about forcing transformation. It is about withdrawing from the environment that kept the old identity alive. You disconnect from the man you used to be by denying him his refuge. Solitude starves him. Stillness suffocates him. And in that slow burn, you witness the gradual collapse of the self that no longer deserves to carry your name. This is the beginning of rebirth. Not in the light, but in the shadows. Not in applause, but in silence. The man you're becoming is forged not by the world's approval, but by your willingness to sit alone with your truth, and let the weaker version of yourself turn to ash. Transformation is not poetic. It is violent. The world romanticizes change, but Musashi understood the brutality behind it. After solitude stripped him bare, he began the long, merciless process of reforging himself through relentless practice. Swordsmanship was merely the visible form of a deeper battle, the carving of a new identity through deliberate repetition. Every swing, every training hour, every disciplined moment was an incision, a cutaway from the man he refused to remain. You must understand this. Discipline is not a lifestyle. It is identity surgery. To adopt new habits is not enough. You must destroy the ones that once defined you. Breaking identity requires action that contradicts everything the old self relied on. When you wake early, though, your weak self craves comfort. You wound him. When you work in silence while he reaches for distraction, you starve him. When you do the hard thing while he whispers excuses, you bury him deeper. People imagine transformation as inspiration, but the truth is friction. The grind of becoming someone who acts, not from emotion but from principle. The whetstone does not sharpen the blade gently. It scrapes, grinds, tears away dullness, layer by layer. Without that friction, sharpness is impossible. The same law governs your reconstruction. Your new identity is shaped through repeated acts that feel unnatural, uncomfortable, and often painful. Look at your life. The actions that would change you are already known. They are simple, repetitive, unglamorous, but your old identity resists them because each one threatens its existence. When you choose discipline, you are making a declaration. I will not be the man shaped by weakness, and the old self senses this threat. He fights back. He tries to reclaim you with cravings, doubt, and the seductive comfort of who you used to be. Musashi stood against this internal rebellion every day. He didn't wait for motivation. He didn't seek ease. He trained until his hands bled and his breath burned because he understood a truth men avoid. The identity you want must be proven, not imagined. The world does not believe your intentions. It believes your patterns. And so the blade of self is forged the same way any weapon is, through fire, pressure, and repeated impact. You become who you practice being, not who you talk about becoming, not who you hope to become. The man you are building will emerge only through a long sequence of moments where you choose the difficult path over the familiar one. This is the violence of growth and the beauty hidden within it. There is a quiet grief in transformation that no one teaches you to expect. Musashi knew it intimately. As he evolved, he left behind not just places and people, but entire versions of himself. Old rivals, old battles, old ties. He abandoned them without ceremony because he understood a painful truth. You cannot carry a dead identity into a new life. It weighs too much. It clings like wet armor, rusted with memory and habit. A man thinks he can fix his old identity, patch its cracks, polish its surface, but identity is not repaired. It is shed, like a snake's skin, tight, familiar, and suffocating. To grow, you must step out of it. And stepping out hurts, because the old identity carries emotions, relationships, and rituals that once felt like home. Letting them go feels like betrayal, but staying with them is betrayal of something far greater, the man you are meant to become. Today, the challenge appears differently, but cuts just as deep. You must walk away from environments that encourage your weakness. from relationships built on comfort rather than truth, from habits that keep you tied to the version of yourself that cannot rise. These departures are not dramatic, they are subtle. You stop replying, you stop showing up, you stop giving your energy to worlds that no longer align with your path, and in the space that follows, you feel an ache, the echo of the man you used to be calling you back, but you do not turn around, because you recognize the cost of staying. Identity death is not rage or destruction, it is surrender. You allow the old self to die quietly, without defense, without justification. You bury him not out of hatred, but out of necessity. You walk forward with a strange mixture of mourning and liberation, the grief of leaving someone familiar, the relief of stepping into air that finally feels breathable. This is the passage every warrior endures, to walk away from the man who once carried your name, knowing he cannot follow you into higher ground. What remains after identity death is not emptiness, but space, the untouched terrain where a new self can finally be shaped. Musashi stepped into this space with intention. He rebuilt himself not on impulse or reputation, but on mastery.com and principle. This was the quiet architecture of a man who understood that identity is not costume, but code, unseen, internal, and unbreakable. You must approach the same task with the same severity. A new identity cannot be inherited from the world or copied from those you admire. It must rise from your own chosen standards. What do you stand for when no one is watching? What lines will you never cross, even when the world tempts you? What principles command your actions, not just your words? These questions are not philosophical. They are structural. They build the framework of the man you are becoming. The modern world teaches you to perform identity, to shape yourself for witnesses, not for truth. But a warrior's identity is lived inwardly. It is a private contract with your future self, upheld in silence. To craft this identity, you begin by defining what you will no longer tolerate from yourself. The weakness you once excused, the laziness you once normalized, the emotional reactions you once justified. Each boundary becomes a stone in the foundation of your new mind. Then you choose the standards that will elevate you: discipline, clarity, restraint, purpose, and you bind yourself to them as if they were vows. Musashi lived by such vows. His mastery came not from talent but from a mind aligned with principle. He walked through the world with a stillness that few men ever taste. Because his identity was not scattered across desires and fears, it was singular, sharp, and directed. Your transformation follows the same law. Identity becomes strong when it stops seeking witnesses, when your choices stop being signals to the world and start being commitments to yourself, when your actions flow from your internal code, not external approval. In this silence, you begin to feel a new force within you, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, a quiet confidence born from alignment. This is the mind of the warrior, crafted, chosen, unborrowed. A man completes his transformation not when others recognize it, but when he no longer needs them to. Musashi walked alone, not out of bitterness, but out of arrival, after breaking his old identity, enduring the solitude, and crafting his inner code. He stepped into a life where companionship was optional, but direction was absolute. The lone warrior is not isolated. He is independent. You reach this stage when validation no longer sways you, when silence no longer frightens you, when the path beneath your feet feels like it belongs to you, even if no one else walks it. The world grows quieter, not because the noise has vanished, but because it no longer commands your attention. You move with an inward stillness, a clarity that cannot be taken from you. Modern men fear walking alone because they associate solitude with emptiness, but the truth is the opposite. Walking alone is the final proof that your identity is no longer shaped by the world. You act from principle, not pressure. You choose your battles. You stay loyal to your code, even when no one is watching. The path ahead resembles a mountain trail, steep, narrow, and honest. No crowds, no applause, no illusions. Just the quiet rhythm of your own steps, and the growing awareness that you have become someone you can trust. The man you used to be fades into memory, not with drama, but with distance. He is no longer abandoned. He is simply outgrown. This is the awakening. The understanding that strength is not loud, discipline is not theatrical, and identity is not decoration. You have forged something quieter, sharper, unshakable. And as you walk alone, you do not feel lost. You feel aligned. A warrior is not defined by the enemies he defeats, but by the self he transcends. You have walked through fire, through mirror, through solitude, through discipline, and now you emerge into the simplest form of power, being a man who no longer seeks permission to become who he must be. This is the new identity, not louder than the old one, just truer, and finally, wholly yours.